Nathan Cole was sleeping in his SUV the night he discovered a multi-million-dollar conspiracy. What he didn't know was that stopping it would cost him everything, or save him from a life he never realized was already gone. This is the story of a man nobody noticed and a CEO who never learned to trust anyone, forced together by betrayal, danger, and a little girl who refused to let either of them stay broken. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and let's get started. Nathan Cole woke up at 4:47 a.m. to the sound of his phone vibrating against the cup holder. He didn't move right away. His neck was stiff from sleeping against the driver's seat headrest again, and his left shoulder had gone numb where it pressed into the cold window. The November air inside the SUV smelled like old fast food and the faint chemical tang of the parking garage's concrete floors. He blinked at the phone screen. It was Emma. "Dad, are you awake yet?" Nathan sat up slowly, wincing as his spine cracked in 3 places. He typed back with stiff fingers. "Yeah, sweetheart. You okay?" Her reply came fast. "Mom says I can't come this weekend because you don't have a real place to stay. Is that true?" Nathan stared at the message until the screen dimmed. He typed 4 different responses and deleted all of them. Finally, he just wrote, "We'll figure it out. I love you." She sent back a heart emoji, and Nathan locked the phone before he could say something stupid like the truth. The truth was that he'd been living in his car for 3 weeks. The truth was that his ex-wife's lawyer had been right about everything during the custody hearing. Nathan didn't have stable housing, didn't have reliable childcare, didn't have his shit together in any measurable way. The truth was that he'd lost the apartment because he'd spent the deposit money on Emma's medical bills after she broke her wrist at gymnastics. The truth was that the financial analyst job at Creston Technologies paid well enough to survive, but not well enough to rebuild. And the deepest truth, the one Nathan didn't let himself think about most mornings, was that he was 32 years old, and the only thing he hadn't lost yet was the weekends with his daughter. Even those were slipping away now. Nathan rubbed his face, grabbed his gym bag from the passenger seat, and climbed out into the freezing garage. The third-floor employee parking structure was deserted at this hour. Creston Technologies didn't officially open until 8, but Nathan had learned that if he arrived early enough, he could use the executive washroom on the 5th floor to shower and shave before anyone noticed. He kept his head down as he walked toward the stairwell, passing rows of luxury sedans and electric cars that cost more than he'd made in the last 2 years combined. His own SUV was 14 years old, scratched along the passenger side, and made a horrible grinding noise every time he shifted into 3rd gear. But it had heated seats that still worked, a back seat big enough to stretch out in, and tinted windows that kept security from noticing he was sleeping inside it. Small victories. Nathan pushed through the stairwell door and climbed 5 flights in the dim service lighting. His knees ached. He'd played college soccer once, back when his life had a trajectory that made sense, and his body still remembered what it felt like to be strong. Now, he was just tired. The executive floor was silent and dark except for the green glow of the exit signs. Nathan moved quickly through the hallway, past the glass-walled offices of department heads and senior managers who wouldn't arrive for another 3 hours. He'd almost made it to the bathroom when he heard footsteps behind him. "You're here early." Nathan froze. He turned slowly and found himself face-to-face with Greg Tomlinson, one of Creston's chief operating officers. Greg was 50-something, silver-haired, and always looked like he'd just stepped out of a boardroom even at 5 in the morning. "Just getting a head start," Nathan said carefully. Greg's eyes flicked to the gym bag in Nathan's hand, then back to his face. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You working on the quarterly reconciliation?" Greg asked. "Yeah, should have the draft done by Monday." Greg nodded slowly. "Good. Claire's been asking about it." Nathan's stomach tightened at the name. Claire Bennett, CEO of Creston Technologies. 30 years old, Harvard-educated, and famous in the industry for turning around 3 failing companies before she was 28. She'd taken over Creston 2 years ago when it was hemorrhaging money and losing clients, and within 18 months she'd made it profitable again. She'd also fired 60 people in her first week. Nathan had never spoken directly to her. He wasn't important enough. He was just one of 40 analysts buried in the finance department, processing spreadsheets and flagging anomalies that someone higher up the chain would take credit for. "Tell her it'll be ready," Nathan said. Greg gave him a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure it will be. Is shit." He walked past Nathan toward the elevators, and Nathan stood there until the doors closed and the hallway was silent again. Then he went into the bathroom and locked the door behind him. I say. By 8:30 a.m., Nathan was at his desk on the 9th floor, showered, and dressed in the same rotation of 3 button-down shirts he'd been wearing since September. The finance department was open plan, which meant 200 people crammed into a grid of low-walled cubicles beneath fluorescent lights that made everyone look vaguely unwell. Nathan's cubicle was in the back corner, wedged between a filing cabinet and a support beam. He liked it that way. Nobody bothered him. He opened his laptop and pulled up the reconciliation file he'd been working on for the past 2 weeks. It was supposed to be a routine audit, just matching Creston's internal financial records against the transactions reported to their international partners. Routine, boring, and completely straightforward. Except it wasn't. Nathan had found the first discrepancy 4 days ago. A payment listed as going to a software vendor in Singapore, but when he cross-referenced the transaction ID, the money had actually been routed through a shell company in the Cayman Islands. He'd flagged it as a clerical error and kept digging. Then he found another one, then 3 more. Now he was looking at a pattern. Over the past 18 months, someone had been siphoning money out of Creston's international accounts in small, carefully hidden increments. The amounts were never large enough to trigger automatic fraud alerts. 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But when Nathan added them up, the total came to just over $4 million. He sat back in his chair and stared at the spreadsheet. $4 million. Gone. And nobody had noticed except him. Nathan's first instinct was to report it immediately. Send an email to his department head, escalate it up the chain, let someone else handle it. But something stopped him. If this was deliberate fraud, and it was starting to look like it, then someone inside the company had to be involved. Someone with access to the international payment systems. Someone with enough authority to move money without raising flags. Which meant Nathan had no idea who he could trust. He minimized the spreadsheet and opened a new browser window. For the next 3 hours, he dug deeper into the transactions, tracing routing numbers and cross-referencing account names against Creston's vendor database. Most of the shell companies didn't exist. The addresses were fake. The contact information led to disconnected phone numbers and dead websites. But one name kept appearing in the metadata, Silver Lake Holdings. Nathan searched for it. Nothing. No business registration, no corporate filings, no website. It was a ghost. He was still staring at the screen when his desk phone rang. Nathan Cole, he answered automatically. Mr. Cole, this is Andrea from HR. Do you have a minute? Nathan's chest tightened. Sure. We need you to come down to the 3rd floor. There's some paperwork we need you to sign. What kind of paperwork? Just routine benefits updates. Shouldn't take long. Nathan hung up and sat very still. He'd worked at Creston for 6 years. HR had never called him before. He locked his laptop, grabbed his jacket, and took the stairs down to the 3rd floor. The HR office was tucked into a quiet corner of the building, behind a frosted glass door with the company logo etched across it. Nathan pushed it open and found Andrea sitting at the front desk, smiling too brightly. Mr. Cole, thanks for coming down. Have a seat. This'll just take a second. Nathan sat. Andrea slid a manila folder across the desk. We're updating our emergency contact information for all employees. Just need you to verify your current details and sign at the bottom. Nathan opened the folder. The form inside was blank except for his name at the top. This doesn't have any of my information on it, he said slowly. Andrea's smile didn't waver. Right, we're starting fresh. Just fill it out and we'll update the system. Nathan looked at her. She looked back. Something was wrong. Can I take this back to my desk? He asked. I don't have my daughter's school information memorized. Oh, that's fine. You can leave it blank for now and email it to me later. Then why did you call me down here? Andrea's smile finally slipped. I just thought it'd be easier to explain in person. Explain what? Before she could answer, the door behind her opened and Greg Tomlinson walked in. Nathan, Greg said pleasantly, glad you're here. We need to talk. Nathan stood up slowly. About what? About the files you've been accessing. The room went very quiet. Greg walked past Andrea and leaned against the edge of the desk, arms crossed. You've been digging into the international accounts, flagging transactions, running queries on vendor records. That's my job, Nathan said carefully. It is, but you've been going deeper than the reconciliation requires. Why? Because I found discrepancies. What kind of discrepancies? Us. Nathan hesitated. Every instinct told him to shut up, walk out, and go straight to a lawyer. But he'd spent 6 years being quiet and invisible, and it had gotten him exactly nowhere. Someone's been moving money through fake accounts, Nathan said. Millions of dollars. I was going to report it. Greg's expression didn't change. To who? I don't know yet. That's why I was still gathering evidence. Evidence, Greg repeated. That's a strong word. It's the right word. Oh, Greg nodded slowly. Then he straightened up and walked toward the door. Come with me. Where are we going? To talk to someone who needs to hear this directly. Nathan followed him out into the hallway, his pulse hammering in his throat. They didn't go to the executive floor. Instead, Greg led him to a service elevator Nathan had never used before. They rode in silence to the 12th floor, the one that didn't appear on the employee directory. When the doors opened, Nathan stepped out into a hallway that looked nothing like the rest of the building. The floors were polished marble. The walls were floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. The air smelled like expensive furniture and cold efficiency. Greg stopped in front of a set of double doors at the end of the hall and knocked twice. A voice came from inside. Come in. Greg opened the door and stepped aside. Me. Greg opened the basum. Nathan walked into Claire Bennett's office. The first thing Nathan noticed was the view. The entire back wall was glass, and beyond it the city stretched out in a grid of steel and light that seemed to go on forever. The second thing he noticed was the temperature. The room was cold enough that he could see his own breath. And the third thing he noticed was Claire herself. She was standing behind a massive glass desk, arms crossed, staring at him like he was a particularly annoying equation she was trying to solve. She looked younger than Nathan had expected. 30, maybe 31, with sharp features and dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look perpetually annoyed. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than Nathan's car, and her expression was the kind of blank that came from years of practice. Nathan Cole, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. You've been digging into the international accounts. Nathan glanced at Greg, who had moved to stand beside the door like a security guard. I was doing my job. Your job is to reconcile quarterly reports, not to run forensic audits. I found something, Nathan said. Claire tilted her head slightly. What did you find? Nathan took a breath. Someone's been stealing from the company. $4 million over the past 18 months, routed through fake vendor accounts. The transactions are small enough to stay under the fraud detection threshold, but the pattern's clear. Claire didn't react. She just stared at him. Who else knows about this? She asked. Nobody. You didn't report it? I didn't know who to trust. For the first time, something shifted in Claire's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Smart, she said. Greg, leave us. Greg stiffened. Claire, I don't think... I said leave. Greg shot Nathan a look that could have stripped paint, then walked out and closed the door behind him. Claire gestured to the chair in front of her desk. Sit. Nathan sat. Claire leaned back against the edge of the desk and crossed her arms. Tell me everything. So Nathan did. He walked her through the discrepancies, the routing patterns, the shell companies that didn't exist. He showed her the spreadsheet on his phone, the metadata, the names that kept appearing in places they shouldn't. Claire listened without interrupting. When Nathan finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Silver Lake Holdings? She said finally. Yeah, you know it? No, but I'm going to. She walked around his desk and sat down, opening her laptop. Her fingers moved across the keyboard fast enough that Nathan couldn't follow. How long have you been sleeping in your car? She asked without looking up. Nathan went very still. What? Greg saw you this morning. Gym bag, 5th floor bathroom, 5 a.m. It's not hard to put together. Nathan's face burned. That's not relevant. It is if someone's watching you. Nathan blinked. What? Huh. Claire finally looked up. If you found this, and you're the only one who found this, then someone's going to notice. They're going to start asking questions. And if they find out you're vulnerable, no stable housing, custody issues, financial problems, they're going to use it. I'm not vulnerable, Nathan said, but even he didn't believe it. Claire's eyes were sharp and cold. Everyone's vulnerable. The trick is making sure nobody knows where. She closed the laptop and stood up. I'm putting you on a special assignment. You're going to keep digging, but you're going to report directly to me. Nobody else. Understand? Nathan nodded slowly. Good. Go back to your desk. Don't talk to Greg. Don't talk to HR. Don't talk to anyone about this. If you find something new, you call me. She handed him a business card with a handwritten number on the back. That's my private line. Use it. Nathan took the card. Why are you trusting me? Claire looked at him for a long moment. Because you're the first person in this building who hasn't lied to me in 6 months, she said. Then she turned back to her computer, and Nathan understood he was dismissed. Nathan spent the rest of the day at his desk, pretending to work on the reconciliation while his brain spun in circles. He kept replaying the conversation with Claire, trying to figure out what he'd just walked into. She was right about one thing. If someone was stealing millions of dollars, they weren't going to stop just because Nathan had noticed. They were going to cover their tracks. And Nathan was the only thing standing in the way. By the time the office emptied out at 6, Nathan's nerves were shot. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the parking garage, keeping his head down and his hands in his pockets. The garage was nearly empty now, just a few stragglers heading home late, their footsteps echoing off the concrete. Nathan's SUV was parked in the same spot he'd left it that morning, tucked into the corner near the stairwell. He unlocked the door, threw his bag into the back seat, and was about to climb in when he heard voices. 2 men coming from the stairwell. Nathan ducked behind the SUV and peered around the edge. The men were wearing black jackets and moving fast. One of them had a crowbar. They weren't heading for the exit. They were heading straight for Nathan's car. Nathan's heart slammed into his throat. He stayed low, watching as the 2 men stopped beside the SUV. One of them tried the door handle. Locked. Just break the window, the other one said. Not yet. Check the trunk first. Nathan's laptop was in the trunk. Everything he'd found, the spreadsheets, the transaction records, the evidence, was on that laptop. The man with the crowbar moved toward the back of the SUV. Nathan didn't think. He stood up, stepped around the car and said, "Can I help you?" Both men turned. For a split second, nobody moved. Then the man with the crowbar swung. Nathan ducked, and the metal bar smashed into the SUV's side mirror, shattering it into pieces. He stumbled backward, his hands up, and the second man grabbed him by the jacket and slammed him against the car. "Where's the laptop?" the man hissed. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man hit him across the face, and Nathan's vision exploded into stars. He tasted blood. "The laptop," the man said again. "Where is it?" Nathan's ears were ringing. He couldn't think. He couldn't breathe. The man with the crowbar moved toward the trunk again. And then, from somewhere above them, a voice cut through the garage like a blade. "Step away from him." All 3 of them looked up. Claire Bennett was standing at the top of the stairwell, her phone in one hand and something small and black in the other. A gun. The 2 men froze. "I said step away," Claire repeated. The man holding Nathan let go and took a step back. Claire descended the stairs slowly, the gun trained on the men the entire time. Her face was calm, blank, completely unreadable. "Security's on the way," she said. "You've got about 30 seconds to decide whether you want to be here when they arrive." The 2 men exchanged a glance. Then they ran. Claire didn't lower the gun until they disappeared through the exit on the far side of the garage. Then she walked over to Nathan, who was still leaning against the SUV, his face bleeding and his hands shaking. "You okay?" she asked. Nathan nodded, but he wasn't. Claire looked at the shattered mirror, then at the SUV, then at Nathan. "They were after the laptop," she said. "Yeah. Which means someone knows what you found." Nathan wiped the blood from his mouth. "Yeah." Claire was quiet for a moment. Then she made a decision. "Get your stuff," she said. "You're coming with me." "Well, what?" You can't stay here. If they know about the laptop, they know about you. And if they're willing to send people after you in a parking garage, they're not going to stop. I can't just leave. You don't have a choice, Claire said. You're a target now. Nathan stared at her. Where am I supposed to go? Claire's expression didn't change. My house, she said, until we figure out who's trying to kill you. And for the first time in weeks, Nathan didn't have a single argument left. Claire's house wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as a mansion, sitting behind 12-foot iron gates in one of Chicago's oldest wealthy neighborhoods, where the streets had names like Astor and Burton, and the properties were measured in acres instead of lots. Nathan sat in the passenger seat of Claire's black Mercedes, watching the gate swing open as she pulled into a driveway lined with security cameras. His ribs ached where the man had slammed him against the SUV, and his jaw throbbed every time he moved it. The bleeding had stopped, but his shirt was ruined. Claire hadn't said a word since they'd left the parking garage. She parked in front of a 3-story brick building that looked like it had been standing since before the city had streetlights. The windows were dark, except for a few dim lights glowing behind heavy curtains on the ground floor. Come on, Claire said, already out of the car. Nathan followed her up the front steps and through a door that opened into a foyer bigger than his old apartment. The floors were marble. The walls were painted a cold gray blue. Everything was clean and expensive and completely silent. Claire locked the door behind them and punched a code into a security panel on the wall. Then she turned to Nathan and looked at him properly for the first time since the garage. You need ice, she said. I'm fine. You're bleeding on my floor. Ooh. Nathan looked down. She was right. A few drops of blood had dripped onto the marble near his shoes. Claire sighed and walked deeper into the house. Follow me. They went through a hallway lined with art Nathan didn't recognize, and into a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. Granite counters, stainless steel appliances, a 6-burner stove that still had the manufacturer's stickers on the knobs. Claire opened the freezer and pulled out an ice pack wrapped in a towel. She handed it to Nathan without ceremony. Sit, she said, gesturing to one of the bar stools near the island. Nathan sat. He pressed the ice pack to his jaw and winced. Claire leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm thinking someone really doesn't want me looking at those files. Obviously, but who? I don't know. Could be anyone with access to the international payment systems. That's at least a dozen people. Claire's eyes narrowed. Greg knew you were digging. He called you down to HR. He could have tipped someone off. Nathan had thought the same thing. Maybe. But why would he do that? Because he's involved, or because he's protecting someone who is. Well, Nathan shifted the ice pack. You don't trust him. I don't trust anyone, Claire said flatly. That's how I've stayed alive this long. She pushed off the counter and walked to the other side of the kitchen, opening a cabinet and pulling out a bottle of whiskey. She poured 2 glasses without asking if Nathan wanted one and slid one across the counter to him. Nathan stared at it. I don't drink. Tonight you do. He picked up the glass and took a sip. It burned going down, but in a way that made the pain in his jaw feel less immediate. Claire drank hers in one swallow and set the glass down hard. You're going to stay here until we figure out what's going on. I have guest rooms on the 2nd floor. Pick one. I can't stay here. Why not? Because I have a daughter. I have custody weekends. I can't just disappear. Claire looked at him like he'd said something in a language she didn't speak. When's your next weekend? This Saturday. That's 4 days from now. We'll have answers by then. You don't know that. No, Claire admitted. But I know that if you go back to sleeping in your car, whoever sent those men will send more. And next time, I won't be there to stop them. Nathan set the ice pack down on the counter. His hands were still shaking. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Helping me. You don't know me. I'm just some analyst who found something he shouldn't have. Claire refilled her glass. You found something everyone else missed. That means you're either very good at your job or very lucky. Either way, I need you alive long enough to finish what you started. That's it? You're protecting your investment? Claire's jaw tightened. I'm protecting my company. If someone's stealing from me, I'm going to find out who, and then I'm going to destroy them. The way she said it made Nathan believe her. He picked up his glass and finished the whiskey. It didn't burn as much the second time. Okay, he said. I'll stay. But Just until Saturday. Claire nodded. Fine. She walked out of the kitchen, and Nathan sat there alone in the silence, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. The guest room Claire pointed him to was on the second floor at the end of a long hallway that smelled faintly of lavender and dust. The bed was massive, the kind with 4 posts and a headboard carved from dark wood. There was a bathroom attached with marble everything and towels so white they looked like they'd never been touched. Nathan dropped his bag on the floor and sat down on the edge of the bed. His phone buzzed. It was Emma again. Did you talk to Mom? Nathan closed his eyes. He'd forgotten to call his ex-wife. Again. He typed back. Not yet. I will tomorrow. I promise. Emma sent back a thumbs-up emoji, and Nathan felt like the worst father on the planet. He set the phone on the nightstand and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His entire body ached. His brain wouldn't stop running through the attack in the garage, replaying the moment the man grabbed him, the crack of the crowbar against the mirror, the look on Claire's face when she'd appeared at the top of the stairs with a gun. She'd saved his life, and Nathan still didn't know why. He didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the 2 men in black jackets, heard the man's voice hissing, "Where's the laptop?" felt the impact of the fist against his face. By the time the sun started filtering through the curtains, Nathan gave up and went downstairs. The house was just as quiet as it had been the night before. Nathan wandered through the hallways, past rooms that looked like they belonged in a museum. Everything was clean and untouched and cold. He found Claire in a room at the back of the house that she'd turned into an office. She was sitting at a desk in front of 3 monitors, typing so fast her fingers blurred. She didn't look up when Nathan knocked on the door frame. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." "Neither could I." She finally glanced at him. "How's your face?" "Sore." "Good. Means you're still alive." Nathan stepped into the office. The monitors were filled with spreadsheets, transaction records, corporate filings. Claire had been working all night. "Did you find anything?" he asked. "Maybe." She pulled up a document on the center monitor. Silver Lake Holdings. It's registered in the Cayman Islands under a parent company called Meridian Group. And Meridian Group has ties to a venture capital firm in New York. "Which firm?" "Langford Capital." Nathan frowned. "I've heard that name before." "You should have. They tried to buy Creston 2 years ago. I blocked the sale." Nathan's stomach dropped. "You think they're retaliating?" "I think they're trying to force me out so they can buy the company for cheap." Claire leaned back in her chair. "The fraud makes Creston look unstable. If it goes public, the stock price crashes. Investors lose confidence. The board panics. And suddenly, selling to Langford doesn't look like such a bad idea." "But you're the CEO. They can't just force you out." Claire's smile was thin and bitter. "They can if the board votes me out. And if they have enough people on the inside working against me, they will." Nathan felt cold. "You think someone on the board is involved?" "I know someone on the board is involved. I just don't know who yet." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "My father built this company," Claire said quietly. "He started it in a garage 30 years ago with nothing but a laptop and a credit card. By the time I was in high school, Creston had offices in 6 countries. He was going to leave it to me." Nathan waited. Then he found out one of his partners was embezzling. The scandal went public. Investors pulled out. The company nearly collapsed. My father couldn't handle it." She paused. "He killed himself 3 weeks later." Nathan's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." Claire didn't turn around. "I rebuilt this company from nothing. I spent 10 years clawing my way back to the top, and I'm not going to let someone take it from me the same way they took it from him." Her voice was steady, but Nathan could hear the edge underneath it, the anger, the fear. "We're going to stop them," Nathan said. Claire finally looked at him. "How?" "I don't know yet, but we will." For a moment, Claire just stared at him. Then she nodded once and turned back to the monitors. "Get cleaned up," she said. "We're going back to the office in an hour. And this time, you're staying close to me." Walking back into Creston Technologies felt like walking into enemy territory. Nathan kept his head down as he followed Claire through the lobby and into the executive elevator. Security nodded at Claire but didn't look twice at Nathan. He was nobody. Invisible. That was fine with him. They rode up to the 12th floor in silence. When the doors opened, Claire walked straight to her office and Nathan followed. "Close the door," she said. Nathan closed it. Claire sat down at her desk and pulled up a file on her computer. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for Friday. I'm going to present the evidence and force them to investigate." Nathan's eyes widened. "That's in 2 days." "I know. Claire, if someone on the board is involved, you're tipping them off. They'll destroy the evidence before you can prove anything." "They'll try," Claire said, "but they won't succeed because you're going to find the rest of the trail before they do." Nathan sat down across from her. "What do you mean?" "Silver Lake Holdings is a shell. Meridian Group is a front. But the money's going somewhere real. I need you to follow it all the way to the end. Find out where it lands. Find out who's receiving it. That could take weeks. You have 2 days." Nathan stared at her. "That's impossible." "Then you'd better get started." She handed him a key card. "This gives you access to the secure server room on the 14th floor. Everything you need is in there. Don't trust anyone. Don't talk to anyone. And don't leave this building without me." Nathan took the key card. His hand was shaking again. "What if I can't find it in time?" Claire's eyes were hard. "Then we lose everything." The server room was freezing and loud and smelled like ozone and overheating electronics. Nathan sat at a terminal in the corner, surrounded by racks of blinking servers that hummed like a mechanical hive. The keycard Claire had given him unlocked access to Creston's entire financial database, including records that were supposed to be restricted to executive-level clearance. He started with the shell companies. Silver Lake Holdings had made 43 payments over the past 18 months, all routed through different banks in different countries. Nathan traced each one backward, unraveling the chain of transactions until he found the source accounts. Most of them were dead ends, fake names, fake addresses, fake everything. But 3 of them were real. The first was a consulting firm in London that had invoiced Creston for cybersecurity services that never happened. The second was a logistics company in Hong Kong that had been paid for shipping costs on products that were never shipped. And the third was a private account registered to someone named David Archer. Nathan typed the name into the employee database. David Archer, Senior Vice President of International Operations, 15 years with the company. Reported directly to Greg Tomlinson. Nathan's heart pounded. He pulled up Archer's personnel file and started cross-referencing his access logs. The timestamps matched. Every fraudulent transaction had been initiated during hours when Archer was logged into the system. Nathan sat back in his chair. He'd found him. David Archer was stealing from the company, and Greg Tomlinson either knew about it or was helping him cover it up. Nathan grabbed his phone and called Claire's private line. She answered on the first ring. "What did you find?" "David Archer, VP of International Ops. He's the one moving the money." There was a long pause. "You're sure?" Claire asked. "Positive. His access logs match every fraudulent transaction, and the money's going into a private account under his name. Send me everything you have." Nathan transferred the files and waited. "Got it," Claire said. "Stay where you are. I'm coming to you." She hung up. Nathan sat in the cold server room, listening to the hum of the machines, and waited for Claire to arrive. He didn't have to wait long. 5 minutes later, the door opened and Claire walked in, her face pale and her jaw tight. "We have a problem," she said. "What?" "David Archer's dead." Nathan's blood went cold. "What?" "I just got a call from the police. They found his body in his apartment an hour ago. Apparent suicide." Nathan stood up so fast his chair rolled backward into the server rack. "That's not a coincidence." "No," Claire said. "It's not." They stared at each other. "Someone killed him," Nathan said. "Someone found out we were getting close, and they killed him to cover their tracks." Claire's hands were shaking. Nathan had never seen her hands shake before. "If they killed Archer, they'll kill anyone else who gets in their way," she said, "including us." Nathan's phone buzzed. He looked down at the screen. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or your daughter's next." Nathan's entire world tilted. He showed Claire the message. Her face went white. "Where's Emma?" she asked. "With her mother in Evanston. Call her, now." Nathan's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. He dialed his ex-wife's number. It rang 4 times before she picked up. "Nathan, I'm busy." "Where's Emma?" Nathan interrupted. "She's at school. Why?" "I need you to pick her up, right now." "What? Nathan? It's the middle of the day." "Someone just threatened her. I need you to get her out of that school and take her somewhere safe." His ex-wife went silent. "Nathan, what the hell is going on?" "I can't explain right now, please. Just trust me. Go get Emma and take her to your parents' house. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't answer the door for anyone you don't know. I'll call you in an hour." "Nathan, please." She hung up. Nathan stood there, his phone still pressed to his ear, his entire body shaking. Claire grabbed his arm. "She'll be okay. Your ex-wife will get her out." "You don't know that. I know that whoever sent that message wants you scared. They want you to stop digging, which means we're close." Nathan looked at her. "Claire, they just killed a man. They threatened my daughter. This isn't about fraud anymore. This is about survival." "I know." "Then we need to go to the police." "And tell them what? That someone on my board might be involved in corporate fraud? They'll investigate for 6 months and find nothing. By then, we'll both be dead." Nathan pulled away from her. "Then what do we do?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. "We finish this," she said. "We find out who's pulling the strings, and then we destroy them before they destroy us." Nathan wanted to argue. He wanted to grab his daughter and disappear. He wanted to go back to being invisible, but he couldn't. Not anymore. "Okay," he said. "What's the plan?" They worked through the night. Claire pulled records, cross-referenced board meeting minutes, traced financial ties between Creston's executives and outside firms. Nathan dug deeper into the transaction logs, looking for patterns, looking for mistakes, looking for anything that would lead them to the person at the top. By 3 a.m., they'd narrowed it down to 3 people on the board who had direct ties to Langford Capital. One of them was Greg Tomlinson. Nathan wasn't surprised. What surprised him was the second name on the list, Margaret Chen, Chief Financial Officer, 20 years with the company, one of the few people Claire said she trusted. "She can't be involved," Claire said, staring at the screen. "I've known her since I took over. She helped me rebuild this company." "Her husband works for Langford," Nathan said quietly, "and she's been signing off on every international transaction for the past 2 years. Claire's face went gray. The third name was Richard Dawson, head of the board. 65 years old, been with Creston since Claire's father founded it. "He was my father's best friend," Claire said. Her voice sounded hollow. "He's the one who convinced me to come back after my father died." Nathan didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Claire stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city was dark except for a few scattered lights. "The board meeting's in 36 hours, she said. "If we accuse the wrong person, we're finished. If we accuse the right person and can't prove it, we're finished. And if we do nothing, they'll vote me out and sell the company anyway." Nathan joined her at the window. "So what do we do?" Claire turned to look at him. "We set a trap." The plan was simple. Claire would send an email to all 3 suspects, Greg, Margaret, and Richard, claiming that Nathan had found definitive proof of the fraud and would be presenting it at the board meeting. She'd include just enough detail to make it believable, but not enough to reveal what they actually knew. Then they'd watch to see who panicked. "Whoever's behind this will try to stop you before the meeting," Claire said. "They'll either come after you directly or try to destroy the evidence." "So I'm bait," Nathan said. "Yes." "Great." Claire almost smiled. "You'll be safe. I'm hiring private security. They'll be with you every second until the meeting." "And if the security's compromised? Then I'll shoot them myself." Nathan believed her. Claire sent the email at 4 a.m. and they waited. By 6 a.m., Nathan's ex-wife called to confirm that Emma was safe at her parents' house in Wisconsin. Nathan exhaled for the first time in hours. By 8 a.m., 2 private security guards arrived at Claire's house. Former military, both of them, with earpieces and guns hidden under tailored jackets. They didn't talk much. Nathan liked them immediately. By 10 a.m., Claire's phone rang. She put it on speaker. "Claire, it's Margaret. We need to talk." Claire's eyes met Nathan's. "About what?" "About the email you sent this morning. Is it true? Did your analyst really find proof?" "Yes." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Claire, I think you need to be very careful about how you present this. If you accuse the wrong person, it could destroy the company." "I'm aware." "Are you? Because if this goes public, the stock will crash. We'll lose investors. We'll lose clients. Everything your father built will be gone." Claire's jaw tightened. "My father's company was stolen from him by people he trusted. I'm not making the same mistake." "Claire, if you have something to say, Margaret, say it at the board meeting." Claire hung up. Nathan stared at her. "You think it's her?" "I don't know, but she's scared." The phone rang again. This time it was Richard Dawson. "Claire, what the hell is going on?" "I'm presenting evidence of fraud at the board meeting. You'll see it when everyone else does. You can't just spring this on us. If there's fraud, we need to investigate it properly. Hire an outside firm. Go through the right channels." "The right channels failed. That's why I'm handling it myself." "Claire, I'm trying to protect you." "No, you're trying to protect yourself." Richard's voice went cold. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about your ties to Langford Capital. I know you've been pushing for a sale, and I know you'll do anything to make it happen. You're making a mistake." "We'll see," Claire said, and hung up. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "That leaves Greg. He won't call," Claire said. "He'll come in person." She was right. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. The security guards checked the camera and nodded to Claire. She walked to the front door and opened it. Greg Tomlinson stood on the steps, looking pale and exhausted. "We need to talk," he said. Claire didn't move. "Then talk." Greg glanced at Nathan, then back at Claire. "Not here. Somewhere private. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of him." Greg's jaw worked. "Fine. You're making a huge mistake, Claire. If you go public with this, you'll destroy the company. The company's already being destroyed. I'm trying to save it. By accusing your own board? By turning this into a witch hunt? By exposing the people who are stealing from it." Greg took a step closer. "You don't know what you're dealing with. These people are dangerous. They've already killed Archer. If you keep pushing, they'll kill you too." Claire's expression didn't change. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." "Then I'll take my chances." Greg stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his car. Claire closed the door and locked it. Nathan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "He's scared." "They all are," Claire said. "Which means we're close." The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Friday. By noon, Nathan was ready to crawl out of his own skin. He'd spent the morning going over the evidence one more time, making sure every transaction was documented, every shell company traced, every connection verified. Claire had prepared a presentation that laid it all out in a way even the most corrupt board member couldn't deny. They had everything. But Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't going to be enough. At 1 p.m., Claire came downstairs wearing a black suit and an expression that could cut glass. "Ready?" she asked. Nathan nodded. "As I'll ever be." They left the house with the 2 security guards flanking them. Claire drove, her hand steady on the wheel, her eyes focused on the road. Nathan's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Last chance. Walk away or die." Nathan showed it to Claire. She didn't even blink. "They're desperate," she said. "That means we've already won." Nathan wanted to believe her. They pulled into the Creston parking garage at 1:45 p.m. The security guards swept the area before letting them out of the car. Everything was clear. They took the elevator to the 12th floor. The boardroom was at the end of the hall, behind glass doors that looked out over the city. Nathan could see people already gathering inside. Margaret Chen, Richard Dawson, a dozen other board members Nathan didn't recognize. Greg Tomlinson was standing near the window, talking on his phone. Claire stopped outside the doors and turned to Nathan. "Whatever happens in there, don't back down," she said. "They're going to try to discredit you. They're going to try to make you look incompetent. Don't let them." "I won't." Claire nodded. Then she pushed open the doors and walked inside. Nathan followed her. Every head in the room turned to look at them. Richard Dawson stood at the head of the table. "Claire, Nathan, glad you could make it." His voice was pleasant, but his eyes were cold. Claire set her laptop on the table and plugged it into the projector. "Let's get started." And Nathan realized that for the first time in his life, he wasn't invisible anymore. The projector hummed to life and threw Claire's first slide onto the wall behind Richard Dawson's head. It was a simple chart showing Creston's international payment history over the past 18 months, color-coded by region. Most of the board members leaned forward to look at it. A few exchanged glances. Greg Tomlinson stayed where he was by the window, his phone still pressed to his ear. Claire stood at the head of the table, her hands flat on the surface, her voice calm and precise. Over the past 18 months, $4.2 million has been stolen from this company through a series of fraudulent transactions routed through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The theft was carefully structured to avoid detection by our automated fraud systems. Small increments, varied timing, fake vendor invoices. Whoever did this knew exactly how our systems worked. Up. She clicked to the next slide. A list of company names appeared. Silver Lake Holdings, Meridian Group. 3 others Nathan had traced back to fake addresses and disconnected phones. Margaret Chen leaned back in her chair, her face pale. "Claire, this is a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "I have transaction records, routing numbers, and access logs," Claire said, "all of which point to someone inside this company with executive-level clearance." Richard Dawson cleared his throat. "And you're bringing this to us now? Why didn't you report this to the authorities?" "Because I needed to know who I could trust first." The room went very quiet. Richard's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting that someone in this room is involved?" "I'm suggesting that someone with board-level access authorized these transactions, and I intend to find out who." Greg finally hung up his phone and turned around. "Claire, you're making a mistake. If you accuse one of us without evidence, you'll destroy this company's reputation. Investors will panic. The stock will crash." "The stock will crash when this fraud goes public anyway," Claire said. "At least this way we control the narrative." "Control the narrative?" Greg's voice rose. "You're turning a board meeting into a trial. This isn't how we handle internal investigations." "Boris Boras, internal investigations failed. That's why I'm handling it myself." Margaret stood up. "Claire, I've known you since you took over this company. I've supported every decision you've made. But this is reckless. If you go public with unverified accusations, they're verified," Nathan said. Every head in the room turned to look at him. Nathan's heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. "I've spent the past week tracing every transaction. The money went through multiple shell companies before landing in private accounts. One of those accounts belongs to David Archer." A murmur went through the room. "Archer's dead," Richard said slowly. "The police ruled it a suicide." "It wasn't a suicide," Claire said. "It was a murder, and whoever killed him is in this room." "Ross Sebarmad." The murmur turned into an uproar. 3 board members started talking at once. Margaret shook her head and sat back down. Greg took a step toward Claire, his face red. "That's enough," Richard said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Claire, you're out of line. You can't just accuse this board of murder without proof." "I have proof," Claire said. She clicked to the next slide. It was a screenshot of an email. The sender was listed as David Archer. The recipient was redacted. The subject line read, "Final payment confirmed." The email was dated 2 days before Archer's death. "This email was sent from Archer's company account to someone on this board," Claire said. The recipient's name was scrubbed from the server, but the metadata is still there, and that metadata shows the email was opened on a device registered to this building. She paused. Someone in this room received that email, and 2 days later, David Archer was dead. The silence was absolute. Nathan watched the faces around the table. Margaret looked sick. Greg looked furious. Richard looked like he was trying very hard to stay calm. Who received it? Margaret asked quietly. I don't know yet, Claire admitted. The IT department's still trying to recover the recipient information. But I will know soon. Richard stood up. This meeting is over. No, it's not, Claire said. Yes, it is. You've made serious accusations without sufficient evidence. You've violated protocol, and you've lost the confidence of this board. Richard looked around the table. I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of removing Claire Bennett as CEO, effective immediately? Nathan's stomach dropped. Greg raised his hand immediately. Then two other board members Nathan didn't recognize. Then Margaret. Nathan watched her raise her hand and saw the look on Claire's face. Not anger, not shock, just a kind of cold resignation that made his chest hurt. Richard counted the hands. That's 4 votes. We need a majority. 6 out of 11. Another hand went up, then another, 6 total. Richard nodded. The motion passes. Claire, you're removed as CEO. You have until end of business today to clear out your office. Claire didn't move. You can't do this. We just did. I'm the majority shareholder. You're the former CEO, Richard interrupted. And unless you want us to file a lawsuit for defamation, I suggest you leave quietly. Claire's hands were shaking. Nathan could see them trembling against the table. She closed her laptop, unplugged it from the projector, and walked out of the boardroom without another word. Nathan stood there for a moment, staring at the people who had just destroyed her. Then he followed her. Bang. Claire made it halfway down the hall before she stopped walking. She stood there, her laptop clutched against her chest, her breathing fast and shallow. Nathan caught up to her. Claire, don't, she said. They can't just... They can. And they did. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were dry, but her face was white. I lost. No, we still have the evidence. We can take it to the police, to the SEC, to the media, and say what? That I got voted out by my own board because I accused them of fraud? They'll call it a power struggle, a personal vendetta. Nobody will believe me. I believe you. Claire laughed, but it came out broken. You're a financial analyst who sleeps in his car. No offense, but your testimony isn't going to move the needle. Nathan flinched. Claire closed her eyes. I'm sorry, that was true, Nathan said. But it doesn't change the fact that you're right. Someone on that board is dirty, and we're going to prove it. How? I don't know yet, but we will. But Claire looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once and started walking again. They took the elevator down to the parking garage in silence. The 2 security guards were waiting by Claire's car, their expressions carefully neutral. We're leaving, Claire told them. They nodded and climbed into a black SUV parked nearby. Claire got into the Mercedes and Nathan slid into the passenger seat. She started the engine but didn't put the car in gear. She just sat there, staring at the concrete wall in front of them. My father lost everything because he trusted the wrong people, she said quietly. I swore I'd never make the same mistake, and I did it anyway. You didn't lose everything, Nathan said. You still have the evidence. You still have the company shares. You still have, what? A house I hate? A reputation in ruins? A board that just stabbed me in the back? Nathan didn't have an answer for that. Claire put the car in gear and drove out of the garage without looking back. They went back to Claire's house and sat in the cold kitchen while the security guards swept the property for threats. Nathan made coffee. Claire didn't drink hers. They'll sell the company to Langford within a month, she said. Richard will push it through, the board will approve it, and everyone who helped steal $4 million will walk away rich. Unless we stop them. We can't stop them. We don't have enough proof. Then we get more. Claire looked at him like he was insane. How? I don't have access to the servers anymore. I don't have access to the building. I'm not the CEO. I'm nobody. You're the majority shareholder. That still means something. It means I can't be fired from the board. That's it. I don't have operational control. I can't authorize investigations. I can't do anything except watch them destroy everything my father built. Nathan set his coffee down. What if we don't need access to the building? Claire frowned. What do you mean? The email Archer sent, the one with the redacted recipient. It said they're trying to recover the data, but they're not going to find it. Whoever scrubbed that email made sure it was gone. So? So maybe the recipient still has a copy. Claire's eyes narrowed. You want to hack into their personal devices? I want to recover the evidence they thought they destroyed. That's illegal. So is murder. Well, Claire was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and walked out of the kitchen. Nathan thought she was done with the conversation, but a minute later she came back with a laptop he hadn't seen before. It was old, scratched, and covered in stickers from tech conferences that happened before Nathan graduated high school. This was my father's, Claire said. He was paranoid about security, built his own VPN, encrypted everything, never trusted cloud storage. She opened the laptop and typed in a password. The screen flickered to life. He also kept backups of every email, every file, every transaction that went through the company servers. Even after he died, I kept the backups running, just in case. Nathan stared at her. You have copies of everything? Everything up until 2 years ago, when I took over and updated the security systems. After that, the backups stopped syncing. She pulled up a file directory. But if Archer sent emails to anyone on the board before that, I might still have them. She started typing, running searches, filtering results. Nathan watched over her shoulder as hundreds of files scrolled past. Then Claire stopped. Here, she said. It was an email thread between David Archer and Richard Dawson, dated 3 years ago. The subject line was Meridian Proposal. Claire opened it. The first email was from Archer. Richard, attached is the proposal we discussed. Langford's offering $40 million for the acquisition. Timeline is 18 months. Let me know if you need anything else. Richard's response, this stays between us. If Claire finds out before we're ready, she'll kill the deal. We need to make sure the company looks unstable enough that the board has no choice but to sell. Nathan's blood ran cold. Claire clicked through the rest of the thread. There were a dozen emails, all of them discussing ways to make Creston look like a failing company, pulling key clients, delaying product launches, and, buried in the last email, a single line that made Nathan's stomach turn. Start moving money offshore, small amounts. Make it look like operational losses. Claire sat back in her chair. Richard, she said. It was Richard the whole time. Nathan's hands were shaking. He was your father's best friend. I know. He convinced you to come back and rebuild the company. I know. And he's been sabotaging it ever since. Claire closed the laptop. Her face was blank, but Nathan could see the rage underneath it. The kind of rage that came from years of betrayal buried so deep it had nowhere left to go. We need to take this to the police, Nathan said. No. Claire, If we go to the police, it'll take months to investigate. Richard will destroy the evidence. He'll disappear, and we'll never prove anything. Then what do we do? Claire stood up. We go to the board meeting tomorrow. Nathan blinked. What board meeting? Oh, the emergency session Richard called to finalize the sale to Langford. He's pushing it through fast before anyone has time to ask questions. Claire's smile was cold and sharp. But I'm still a board member, which means I have the right to attend, and I have the right to present evidence. He'll block you. He'll try, but he can't stop me from walking into that room, and once I'm in, I'm going to show every single person in that boardroom exactly who Richard Dawson is. Nathan stared at her. You're going to confront him in front of everyone. I'm going to destroy him in front of everyone. Claire, if you do this, there's no going back. He'll come after you. He already came after me. He voted me out. He killed Archer. He threatened your daughter. Claire's eyes were hard. I'm done being careful. I'm done playing by the rules. Tomorrow, I'm burning everything to the ground. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Claire printed copies of every email, every transaction record, every piece of evidence that tied Richard to the fraud. Nathan organized it into a presentation that even the most corrupt board member couldn't ignore. By midnight, they were ready. Claire sent an email to every board member, informing them that she would be attending tomorrow's meeting and presenting new evidence. She didn't give them details. She didn't give them time to prepare. She just told them to be there. Nathan tried to sleep that night, but his brain wouldn't shut off. He kept thinking about Emma, about the text message threatening her, about the look on Richard's face when Claire had accused the board. He kept thinking about what would happen if they failed. At 2 a.m., he gave up and went downstairs. Claire was in the kitchen, sitting at the island with a glass of whiskey in front of her. She wasn't drinking it, she was just staring at it. "Can't sleep?" Nathan asked. "Haven't slept in 3 days." Nathan sat down across from her. "You okay?" Claire laughed. "No." "Yeah, me neither." They sat in silence for a while. "My father used to sit at this counter every morning before work," Claire said. "He'd drink terrible coffee and read the newspaper and complain about traffic. He was happy. Even when the company was struggling, even when money was tight, he was happy." She picked up the glass and turned it in her hands. "I never understood how he could be like that, how he could care so much about something and still be okay when it fell apart." "Maybe he cared about more than just the company," Nathan said. Claire looked at him. "Like what?" "Like you." Her expression flickered. "He killed himself and left me with nothing." "He left you with the company." "No. Richard and the board took the company. My father left me with debt and a scandal and a name nobody would hire." Nathan hesitated. "Is that why you came back? To prove them wrong?" "I came back because I didn't know what else to do." Claire set the glass down. "I was 25 years old, and the only thing I knew how to do was fix broken companies. So I fixed this one, and then I kept fixing it, and I told myself it was enough. But it wasn't." "No." Claire looked out the window at the dark yard. "It's never enough. No matter how much I save, no matter how much I build, it's still just a company. It's still just numbers on a screen. And at the end of the day, I go home to this house, and it's empty. It's always empty." Nathan didn't know what to say. Claire stood up and walked to the sink. She poured the whiskey down the drain and rinsed the glass. "I'm not my father," she said quietly. "I'm not going to let this destroy me." "Good," Nathan said, "because I need you alive long enough to finish this." Claire almost smiled. "You're not getting rid of me that easily." The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Nathan woke up at 6, showered, and put on the best shirt he had left. It was wrinkled, and the collar was frayed, but it was clean. Claire was already downstairs, dressed in the same black suit she'd worn the day before. She looked exhausted and furious and ready to burn the world down. "Ready?" she asked. Nathan nodded. They left the house at 8 with the 2 security guards following in the SUV behind them. The drive to Creston headquarters was silent except for the low hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the guards' radios. Nathan's phone buzzed. It was his ex-wife. "Emma keeps asking when she can come home. How much longer?" Nathan typed back, "Soon, I promise." He didn't know if it was true. They pulled into the parking garage at 8:45. The place was almost empty. Too early for most employees, too late for the executives who started at dawn. Claire parked near the elevator and turned off the engine. "Last chance to back out," she said. Nathan looked at her. "Are you backing out?" "No." "Then neither am I." They got out of this car and walked to the elevator. The security guards flanked them, scanning the garage for threats. The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt like it took an hour. When the doors opened, Nathan could hear voices coming from the boardroom at the end of the hall. The meeting had already started. Claire walked toward it without hesitation. Nathan followed. The boardroom doors were closed. Claire pushed them open and stepped inside. Every conversation stopped. Richard Dawson was standing at the head of the table, mid-sentence. Greg Tomlinson was sitting beside him. Margaret Chen was across from them, her hands folded in front of her. The rest of the board turned to stare at Claire. "You're not welcome here," Richard said. "I'm a board member," Claire said, "which means I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Richard's jaw tightened. "You were removed as CEO. You have no operational authority. I have voting authority. And I have evidence that this board needs to see before it makes any decisions about selling this company." "We've already seen your so-called evidence," Greg said. "It was circumstantial at best. We're moving forward with the sale." "No," Claire said. "You're not." She set her laptop on the table and opened it. Richard took a step forward. "Claire, I'm warning you. Warn me all you want. I'm presenting this evidence, and you're going to listen. She plugged the laptop into the projector. The first slide appeared on the wall. It was the email thread between Richard and David Archer, blown up large enough for everyone in the room to read. The room went silent. Margaret leaned forward, her eyes scanning the text. What is this? This is proof that Richard Dawson has been conspiring with David Archer and Langford Capital to sabotage this company and force a sale, Claire said. Her voice was steady, cold, precise. Over the past 3 years, they've stolen $4 million, manipulated financial records, and murdered anyone who got in their way. Richard's face went white. That's a lie. It's an email from your account to David Archer, instructing him to move money offshore and make the company look unstable. Yes. That email's fake, Richard said. Someone's trying to frame me. It's not fake. It's from my father's backup server, the one he built specifically to prevent people like you from covering your tracks. Claire clicked to the next slide. Another email, then another. The evidence piled up. Transaction records, access logs, payment confirmation sent directly to Richard's private email. Margaret stood up. Richard, is this true? Of course not. Because if it is, you've committed fraud. You've violated your fiduciary duty. I said it's not true. Richard's voice cracked. Greg stood up too. Richard, if you've been working with Langford behind our backs... I was trying to save this company, Richard shouted. Claire's father nearly destroyed it with his incompetence. I spent years cleaning up his mess, and then she came back and undid everything I built. The room went very still. So you decided to destroy it yourself? Claire's voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a blade. You decided to steal millions of dollars, frame innocent people, and murder anyone who found out? I didn't murder anyone. David Archer is dead, and the last email he sent before he died was to you. Richard took a step back. You can't prove that. I can, and I will. Claire clicked to the final slide. It was a screenshot of an email sent from Archer's account to Richard, timestamped 2 days before Archer's death. The subject line was, "We need to talk." The body of the email was short. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to the police. Richard's response sent 4 hours later. Don't do anything stupid. We'll handle it. The room exploded. 3 board members started shouting at once. Margaret slammed her hand on the table. Greg stood frozen, his face pale. Richard just stared at the screen. You killed him? Claire said. You killed him to keep him quiet. I didn't... Richard's voice broke. I didn't kill him. He stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. You just what? Margaret asked. Richard didn't answer. Claire leaned forward. You just told someone else to do it. Who? Who did you hire? Richard shook his head. I want a lawyer. Too late for that? Claire said. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. A voice answered on the second ring. This is Agent Kowalski, FBI. Claire put the call on speaker. Agent Kowalski, this is Claire Bennett. I'm a board member at Creston Technologies. I'm currently in a board meeting with Richard Dawson, and I have evidence that he's committed fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. I'd like to turn that evidence over to you immediately. There was a pause. Stay where you are, the agent said. We're on our way. Claire hung up. Richard stared at her. You just destroyed this company. No, Claire said. I just saved it. The FBI arrived 20 minutes later. They escorted Richard out of the building in handcuffs while the rest of the board sat in stunned silence. Greg tried to leave, but the agent stopped him at the door and started asking questions about his involvement. Margaret walked over to Claire, her face ashen. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Claire looked at her. You voted to remove me because Richard told me you were having a breakdown. He said you were making accusations without proof. He said... Margaret stopped. I believed him. I'm sorry. Claire didn't respond. Nathan stood near the window, watching the agents load Richard into the back of a black SUV. One of the agents walked over to Claire. Ms. Bennett, we're going to need you to come down to the field office and give a statement. Claire nodded. I'll be there this afternoon. The agent left. The boardroom emptied slowly. One by one, the members filed out, none of them looking at Claire. Soon it was just Claire, Nathan, and Margaret. Margaret cleared her throat. The board will need to vote on a new CEO. Claire didn't look at her. I don't want it. I want to be CEO, not anymore. Claire, I spent 10 years fighting for this company. I spent 10 years sacrificing everything to keep it alive, and it almost killed me. Claire turned to face Margaret. I'm done. Margaret looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just nodded and walked out. Nathan stayed. Claire sat down in one of the chairs and stared at the empty boardroom. What are you going to do now? Nathan asked. Claire was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she said finally. For the first time in my life, I have no idea what comes next. Nathan sat down beside her. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Claire looked at him. You think so? I think you've been holding this company together for so long, you forgot what it's like to just exist without it. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. But maybe we can figure it out together. Claire's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. You're a terrible financial analyst, you know that? Nathan laughed. Yeah, I know. They sat there for a while, watching the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and for the first time in weeks, Nathan felt like he could breathe. His phone buzzed. It was Emma. Dad, can I come home now? Nathan smiled. Yeah, sweetheart, you can come home. The FBI kept Claire at their field office for 6 hours. Nathan waited in the lobby the entire time, drinking burnt coffee from a vending machine and watching federal agents move through the hallways like they were walking through water. Everything in the building felt slow and deliberate and gray. When Claire finally emerged, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her suit was wrinkled, her hair had come loose from its usual tight arrangement, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide anymore. You didn't have to wait, she said. Yeah, I did. They walked out to the parking lot together. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that felt wrong for the kind of day they'd had. Claire unlocked the Mercedes, and they both got in. She didn't start the engine right away. She just sat there with her hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. They arrested Greg, she said finally. He was transferring money to an offshore account when they searched his office. He panicked and tried to run. Nathan exhaled. What about Margaret? Clean. She didn't know anything. Claire's voice was flat. Richard planned the whole thing. Archer executed it. Greg helped cover it up. And I was too blind to see it happening right in front of me. You couldn't have known. I should have. Richard was my father's best friend. I trusted him completely. I never questioned anything he said. That's not your fault. Bull. Claire finally looked at him. Isn't it? I spent 10 years rebuilding this company, and I didn't notice that the man running the board was actively destroying it. What does that say about me? Nathan didn't have a good answer for that, so he didn't try to give one. Claire started the car and drove them back to her house in silence. When they pulled through the gates, the security guards were gone. Claire had dismissed them that morning, saying she didn't need protection anymore now that Richard was in custody. The house felt even emptier than usual. They went inside and Claire disappeared upstairs without a word. Nathan heard a door close, then the sound of running water. He stood in the foyer for a moment, not sure what to do with himself. Then he went to the kitchen and started making dinner from whatever he could find in Claire's mostly empty refrigerator. Eggs, cheese, some vegetables that were starting to wilt. He made omelets and toast and set 2 plates on the island. Claire came down 20 minutes later wearing jeans and a sweater Nathan had never seen before. She looked more human somehow, smaller, less like a CEO, and more like a person who was just very, very tired. She sat down at the island and stared at the plate. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know. I don't usually eat dinner. I know that too. Claire picked up her fork and took a bite, then another. She ate mechanically, like she was checking off a box on a list. Nathan ate his own omelet and didn't push her to talk. When they were both finished, Claire carried her plate to the sink and rinsed it. I got a call from the board, she said, her back still to Nathan. They want me to come back as CEO. Nathan set his fork down. What did you say? I said I'd think about it. Are you going to do it? Well, Claire turned around and leaned against the counter. I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes. Go back, fix the damage Richard caused, Prove that I can still run the company. That's what I've always done. Every time something fell apart, I put it back together. And the other part? The other part wants to sell my shares and walk away. Let someone else clean up the mess. Let someone else spend their entire life fighting for a company that almost got them killed. She crossed her arms. She crossed. The problem is I don't know who I am if I'm not doing this. I've been saving failing companies since I was 25. It's the only thing I know how to do. Nathan stood up and walked over to her. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you've been so busy saving everyone else that you forgot to figure out what you actually want. Claire looked at him. What do you want, Nathan? The question caught him off guard. I want to see my daughter more than 2 weekends a month, he said slowly. I want to stop sleeping in my car. I want to stop feeling like I'm one missed paycheck away from losing everything. That's not what I asked. I asked what you want, not what you need to survive. Nathan thought about it. I want to be a good father, he said finally. I want Emma to grow up knowing that I didn't give up on her, that I fought for her even when everything else was falling apart. Claire's expression softened. You're already doing that. Not well enough. Nobody does it well enough. That's the point. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, and Nathan realized that at some point over the past 2 weeks, Claire had stopped being his boss and started being something else. A partner, maybe. Or a friend. Or something he didn't have a name for yet. The board offered you a position too, Claire said. Nathan blinked. What? They want to promote you to Director of Financial Oversight. Full executive benefits, corner office, salary. That's triple what you're making now. She paused. I told them you'd probably say no. Why would I say no? Because you don't want to be an executive. You want to be a father. Nathan stared at her. How do you know what I want? Because I've been watching you for 2 weeks. Every time your phone buzzes, you check if it's Emma. Every time you talk about the future, you mention her first. You don't care about corner offices or executive benefits. You care about being there for your daughter. She was right, and it made Nathan's chest hurt. I can't afford to turn down that kind of salary, he said. Emma's medical bills, the custody lawyer, the rent I owe on the apartment I lost. I'll pay off your debts, Claire said. Nathan took a step back. What? You saved my company. You saved my life. Let me pay off your debts. All of them. You can start over without the weight of everything you've lost. Claire, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because if you take that executive position, you're going to end up just like me. Working 80 hours a week, missing your daughter's childhood, waking up one day and realizing you spent your whole life building something that doesn't matter. Nathan's throat was tight. The company matters to you. No, it doesn't. It mattered to my father. I just convinced myself it mattered to me because I didn't know what else to care about. Claire looked out the window at the dark yard. Claire looked, You have a second chance, Nathan. Don't waste it trying to be someone you're not. Nathan wanted to argue. He wanted to say that he needed the money, needed the job, needed the stability. But the truth was that Claire was right. He didn't want to be an executive. He wanted to be a father. Okay, he said quietly. I'll turn it down. Claire nodded. Good. But I'm not letting you pay off my debts. Yes, you are. Claire, consider it severance pay for saving my life twice in 1 week. Nathan laughed despite himself. That's not how severance works. I'm the former CEO. I'll make it work however I want. Emma came home the next day. Nathan's ex-wife drove her down from Wisconsin and dropped her off at Claire's house without coming inside. She gave Nathan a long look through the car window, like she was trying to decide if he'd finally gotten his act together, then drove away without a word. Emma stood on the front steps with her backpack and her stuffed rabbit, and a look on her face that said she wasn't sure what was happening, but she was trying to be brave about it. Hey, sweetheart, Nathan said. Hi, Dad. He knelt down and hugged her, and she wrapped her small arms around his neck and held on tight. I missed you, Nathan said. I missed you too. When they pulled apart, Emma looked past him at the massive house behind them. Is this where you live now, she asked. No, I'm just staying here for a little while. It's really big. Yeah, it is. Emma looked uncertain. Can I see inside? Nathan took her hand and led her through the front door. Claire was waiting in the foyer, standing stiff and awkward like she'd never been around a child before and wasn't sure what the protocol was. "Emma, this is Claire," Nathan said. "Claire, this is my daughter." Emma stared up at Claire with wide eyes. "You're really tall." Claire blinked. "I'm wearing heels. They're pretty." "Thank you." There was a long pause. "Do you want to see the castle?" Claire asked suddenly. Emma's face lit up. "This is a castle?" "It's a house, but it's old and big, so I suppose it could be a castle if you wanted it to be." Emma looked at Nathan for permission. Nathan nodded. "Okay," Emma said. Claire led them through the house, pointing out rooms and hallways like she was giving a museum tour. Emma asked 100 questions. Why are the ceilings so high? Why are there so many paintings? Why don't you have a TV in the living room? Claire answered each one seriously, like Emma's questions were the most important thing she'd heard all day. They ended up in the kitchen, where Claire pulled out a stool so Emma could sit at the island. "Are you hungry?" Claire asked. Emma nodded. Claire opened the refrigerator and frowned. "I don't have much. I could make eggs." "I like eggs." Hut. Nathan watched Claire make scrambled eggs for his daughter, and something in his chest loosened. He'd spent the past month terrified that he was failing Emma, that she was growing up watching him fall apart, that he'd never be able to give her the stability she deserved. But sitting here in Claire's kitchen, watching his daughter eat eggs and talk about school and ask Claire if she'd ever seen a real dragon, Nathan realized that maybe stability wasn't about having the perfect job or the perfect apartment. Maybe it was just about showing up. Emma stayed the weekend. Nathan had been worried it would be awkward, living in someone else's house with his daughter, but Claire made it easy. She cleared out one of the guest rooms and let Emma decorate it however she wanted. She taught Emma how to play chess on an antique board she found in the library. She even sat through a marathon viewing of Emma's favorite animated movies without complaining once. On Sunday afternoon, Nathan found Claire and Emma in the backyard, building something out of sticks and rocks that Emma insisted was a fort for fairies. "They need a place to live," Emma explained, "because winter's coming and they'll get cold." "That's very thoughtful," Claire said seriously. Nathan sat down on the back steps and watched them work. Later, after Emma had gone to bed, Nathan and Claire sat in the library with glasses of wine and the kind of comfortable silence that came from spending too many stressful days together. "She's a good kid," Claire said. "Yeah, she is. She looks like you." Nathan smiled. "Poor thing." Claire shook her head. "I mean it. She has your eyes and your smile, and that way of asking questions that makes you feel like you have to answer them honestly." "Mom, Nathan took a sip of wine. "You're good with her." "I have no idea what I'm doing." "Neither do I, but you're still good with her." Claire was quiet for a moment. "I've never been around kids much. After my father died, I threw myself into work. There wasn't time for anything else. No friends, no hobbies, no family, just the company." "Do you regret it?" "I don't know. I accomplished a lot. I saved 3 failing businesses. I became the youngest CEO in the industry. I made more money than I'll ever need." She stared into her wine glass. "But I'm 30 years old and I don't have anyone. No partner, no children, no one who'd notice if I disappeared." "I'd notice," Nathan said. Claire looked at him. "You barely know me." "I know you saved my life. I know you're brilliant and terrifying and completely insane. And I know that you spent the past week putting yourself in danger to protect me and my daughter, even though you didn't have to." "I had to. You were the only one who knew the truth. You could have turned the evidence over to the FBI and walked away. You didn't have to let me stay in your house. You didn't have to pay off my debts. You didn't have to spend your weekend building fairy forts with Emma." Claire's jaw tightened. "I don't know why I did those things." "Yes, you do." She looked away. Nathan set his wine glass down and moved to sit beside her on the couch. "You did those things because you're not the cold, emotionless person you pretend to be," he said quietly. "You did them because you care. About the company, about justice, about people who've been screwed over by systems that don't give a damn about them." "What?" Fun. Claire's hands were shaking. "If I care too much, I'll end up like my father, destroyed by people I trusted. You're not your father, and you're not going to end up like him. How do you know? Because you have people who won't let that happen. Claire turned to look at him. What people? Me, Emma, Margaret. Hell, even the FBI agents who spent 6 hours grilling you yesterday are probably on your side after what you showed them. That's not enough. Maybe not, but it's a start. They sat there in the quiet library, and Nathan realized that Claire was crying. Just a few tears sliding down her cheeks in the dim lamplight, but they were there. He didn't say anything. He just sat beside her and let her cry. On Monday morning, Claire went back to Creston Technologies, not as CEO, not as an executive, just as a board member with voting rights and a lot of questions about how the company planned to move forward. The board had appointed Margaret as interim CEO until they could conduct a proper search. Margaret's first action was to fire everyone who'd been involved in the fraud and hire an outside firm to audit the entire company from top to bottom. Her second action was to offer Nathan his job back. Nathan turned it down. He spent the morning at the unemployment office, filing paperwork and talking to a counselor about job training programs. Then he picked up Emma from school and took her to the park. They sat on the swings together, not really swinging, just talking. "Dad, are we going to live in the castle?" Emma asked. "No, sweetheart. We're going to find our own place." "I like the castle." "I know, but it's not ours." Emma kicked at the dirt beneath her feet. "Are you and Claire going to get married?" Nathan almost fell off the swing. "What? No. Why would you think that?" "Because she looks at you the way Mom used to look at you before you got divorced." Nathan's chest tightened. "How does she look at me?" "Like you're sad and she wants to fix it." Nathan didn't know what to say to that. Emma kept swinging. "I think you should marry her. Then we could live in the castle and I could have my own room with the big windows." "That's not how it works, Em." "Why not?" "Because people don't get married just so you can have a room with big windows." "Then why do they get married?" Nathan thought about it. "Because they love each other, and because they want to build a life together." "Don't you want to build a life with Claire?" "It's complicated." "That's what Mom always says when she doesn't want to explain things." Nathan smiled despite himself. "Yeah, it is." They swung in silence for a while. "I like her," Emma said finally. "She's nice, and she makes you smile more. She makes me want to pull my hair out." "You don't have that much hair left anyway." Nathan laughed and reached over to ruffle Emma's hair. She squealed and swung higher, and for the first time in months, Nathan felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. That night, Nathan sat in Claire's kitchen while Emma did homework at the island, and Claire worked on her laptop at the other end of the table. It felt domestic in a way that made Nathan's chest hurt. This wasn't his life. This was temporary. He was staying in Claire's house until he could afford his own place, and then he'd leave and Claire would go back to being alone in her empty mansion, and Nathan would go back to being a single father, living paycheck to paycheck. Except he didn't want to leave, and he was pretty sure Claire didn't want him to go. Emma finished her homework and climbed down from the stool. "Dad, can I watch TV?" "Half an hour," Nathan said. Emma ran off to the living room, leaving Nathan and Claire alone. Claire closed her laptop. "I'm selling the company." Nathan stared at her. "What? What? "I'm selling my shares to Margaret. She's been with Creston for 20 years. She cares about it more than I do. And she'll actually be there to run it instead of hiding in an empty house pretending she's fine. Claire, I've already talked to the lawyers. The sale will go through next month." Claire stood up and walked to the window. "I'm done, Nathan. I'm done fighting for something that was never really mine to begin with." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. Maybe nothing for a while. Maybe travel. Maybe figure out who I am when I'm not trying to save everyone." Nathan joined her at the window. "That sounds terrifying." "It is." Claire looked at him. "Come with me." Nathan's heart stopped. "What?" "You and Emma. Come with me. We'll travel, see the world, figure out what we actually want instead of just surviving." "Claire, I can't." "Why not? You don't have a job, you don't have an apartment. The only thing keeping you here is Emma's school, and she can study anywhere. That's insane." "So so was everything else we've done in the past 2 weeks. Nathan wanted to say yes. He wanted to grab Emma and Claire and disappear into a life that didn't involve parking garages and death threats and corporate fraud. But he couldn't. Emma needs stability, he said quietly. She needs a home, a school, friends. She needs normal. And what do you need? Nathan looked at Claire. Really looked at her. At the woman who'd saved his life, who'd trusted him when no one else would, who'd spent her weekend building fairy forts and teaching his daughter to play chess. I need you to be okay, he said. Claire's eyes were bright. I don't know how to be okay. Neither do I. But maybe we can figure it out together. I just said that. About traveling. I know. And I'm saying we can figure it out here. In Chicago. With Emma in school and both of us trying to build something that isn't falling apart. Claire was quiet for a long time. I don't know how to do that, she said finally. Neither do I. But I know I don't want to do it without you. Claire turned to face him fully. Nathan, I'm a disaster. I have no idea how to have a normal relationship. I work too much. I don't sleep enough. And I'm emotionally unavailable on a good day. I sleep in my car and my daughter thinks you're a princess who lives in a castle. We're both disasters. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. It's just the truth. Claire shook her head, but she was almost smiling. This is a terrible idea. Probably. We're going to fail spectacularly. Maybe. Emma's going to be the most well-adjusted person in this entire arrangement. Definitely. Claire laughed, and it sounded surprised, like she'd forgotten she knew how. Then she kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or perfect. It was messy and uncertain and tasted like wine and exhaustion. But it was real. When they pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I don't have anywhere to live, he said. You can stay here. Claire, I have 12 empty bedrooms. Pick one. Or don't. I don't care. Just stay. Nathan thought about arguing. Thought about all the reasons why this was a bad idea, why he should find his own place. Why he shouldn't let his daughter get attached to a life they couldn't keep. But he was tired of arguing, tired of fighting, tired of doing everything alone. Okay, he said. We'll stay. Claire smiled, actually smiled. And Nathan realized he'd never seen her do that before. From the living room, Emma called out, Dad, my show's over. Can I have ice cream? Mom. It's 8 o'clock on a Monday, Nathan called back. Is that a yes? Nathan looked at Claire. Claire shrugged. Why not? Nathan said. Emma appeared in the doorway, grinning. I heard that. Claire, do you have ice cream? I have no idea. I don't think I've ever looked. Emma ran to the freezer and started rummaging through it. She emerged victorious with a pint of vanilla that was probably 3 years old and covered in frost. This'll work, she announced. Nathan found bowls. Claire found spoons. Emma scooped ice cream for all three of them, giving herself the biggest serving. They sat at the kitchen island together, eating freezer-burnt ice cream and talking about nothing important. And Nathan realized that this was what he'd been fighting for all along. Not a job, not money, not stability. Just this, a moment where his daughter was happy, where he wasn't terrified of losing everything, where the woman beside him looked at him like he mattered. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even close, but it was enough. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, legal meetings, and slowly rebuilding a life that had been shattered. Claire finalized the sale of her shares to Margaret. The transaction went through without complications, and Margaret took over as permanent CEO with the full support of the board. Nathan met with a financial advisor Claire had hired and learned that all his debts had been paid off. The medical bills, the back rent, the legal fees from the custody battle. All of it. Gone. He cried in the advisor's office and didn't care who saw. With the debts cleared, Nathan started looking for work. Not executive positions or high-paying analyst jobs. Just something stable that would let him be home for dinner every night. He found a job at a small accounting firm that specialized in nonprofit organizations. The pay was modest, the hours were reasonable, and his boss didn't care that he'd spent the past month sleeping in his car. Emma enrolled in a new school closer to Claire's house. She made friends quickly, joined the art club, and started bringing home drawings of castles with 3 people standing in front of them. Nathan pretended not to notice. Claire didn't pretend at all. She hung the drawings on the refrigerator like they were masterpieces. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a museum and started feeling like a home. Nathan moved his things out of the guest room and into Claire's room after 2 weeks of dancing around the subject. Emma asked why they were sharing a room now, and Nathan stumbled through an explanation about how sometimes adults who care about each other like to spend more time together. Emma just shrugged and asked if that meant they could get a dog. They did not get a dog, but they did get a cat, a scrappy orange tabby from the shelter that Emma named Commander Whiskers, and Claire pretended to tolerate but secretly adored. Nathan came home from work one day to find Claire on the couch with the cat asleep in her lap while she read a book about astrophysics. She looked up when Nathan walked in and said, "Don't say anything." "I wasn't going to." "You're smiling. That counts as saying something." Nathan sat down beside her and the cat immediately abandoned Claire to climb into his lap instead. "Traitor," Claire muttered. Emma ran downstairs with a drawing of Commander Whiskers wearing a tiny crown. "Look what I made." "It's perfect," Nathan said. Claire took the drawing and studied it seriously. "The proportions are good, and the crown is anatomically accurate for a cat monarch." Emma beamed. They hung the drawing on the refrigerator next to the others. That night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Nathan and Claire sat in the library with glasses of wine and the comfortable silence that had become their default. "I got a call from the FBI today," Claire said. Nathan tensed. "What did they say?" "Richard's pleading guilty to fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. He's trying to negotiate a deal to avoid the murder charge, but the prosecutor isn't interested. Greg's cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence." "And you? Are they done with you?" "For now. I have to testify at the trial, but that's not for another 6 months." Claire swirled the wine in her glass. "It's over, Nathan. Actually over." "How does that feel?" "Strange. I spent so long fighting that I don't know what to do now that there's nothing left to fight for." Nathan set his glass down. "You could start living." "I don't know how." "Neither do I, but we're figuring it out." Claire leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up." "You probably will. So will I. But we'll screw it up together." "That's not comforting." "It's honest." Claire laughed quietly. "I suppose that's something." They sat there until the wine was gone and the fire in the fireplace had burned down to embers. Then they went upstairs to the bedroom they shared and fell asleep tangled together like they'd been doing it for years instead of weeks. And for the first time in a long time, Nathan didn't have nightmares about losing everything, because the things that mattered were right there beside him, and they weren't going anywhere. 6 months after Richard Dawson's arrest, Creston Technologies held its annual charity gala at the Drake Hotel. Nathan didn't want to go. He'd left that world behind when he turned down the executive position, and walking back into a room full of corporate executives and board members felt like stepping into a life he'd intentionally escaped. But Claire had been invited as a former board member and major shareholder, and she'd asked him to come with her, not because she needed him there, just because she wanted him there. So Nathan rented a suit that didn't fit quite right and spent 20 minutes trying to tie his tie before Claire finally came into the bedroom and did it for him without saying a word. Emma was staying with Nathan's ex-wife for the weekend. Before they'd left, she'd made Nathan promise to take pictures of Claire's dress and bring her back something fancy from the dessert table. "You look terrified," Claire said, adjusting Nathan's collar. "I am terrified. It's just a party. It's a room full of people who used to be your colleagues, people who voted you out, people who probably think you're insane for dating a guy who used to sleep in his car." Claire stepped back and looked at him. She was wearing a dark blue dress that Nathan didn't have the vocabulary to describe, except that it made her look like she could run a country or burn one down depending on her mood. "Let them think whatever they want," she said. "I stopped caring what those people thought about 6 months ago." "Do you ever miss it?" Nathan asked. "The company, being CEO, having that kind of power." Claire considered the question. "Sometimes, I miss the feeling of fixing something broken. I miss knowing exactly what I was supposed to do every day." She picked up her purse from the dresser. "But I don't miss the person I was when I had all that. I don't miss being alone." Nathan took her hand. "You're not alone anymore." "I know." Claire squeezed his hand. That's the terrifying part. They drove to the Drake in Claire's Mercedes, and Nathan spent the entire ride trying to remember how to make small talk with people who earned more in a month than he made in a year. The hotel ballroom was decorated like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, flower arrangements that probably cost more than Nathan's rent. The entire room smelled like expensive perfume and ambition. Claire walked in like she owned the place, her hand tucked into the crook of Nathan's arm. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Nathan could feel people staring, could hear the whispers that followed them across the room. Margaret Chen appeared almost immediately, wearing a silver dress and a smile that looked genuine. "Claire, I'm so glad you came." She pulled Claire into a hug, then turned to Nathan. "And Nathan, it's good to see you again." "You too," Nathan said. "How's the new job?" "Quiet, which is exactly what I wanted." Margaret laughed. "I don't blame you. After everything you went through, you earned some peace." She glanced at Claire. "Both of you did." "How's the company?" Claire asked. "Stable, profitable, boring?" Margaret's smile widened. "Exactly what it should be. We finished the internal audit last month, found a few more irregularities that Richard had buried, but nothing catastrophic. The board's happy. The investors are happy. For the first time in years, we're not putting out fires." "That's good," Claire said, and Nathan could hear that she meant it. They talked for a few more minutes before Margaret excused herself to greet other guests. Nathan and Claire found their assigned table near the back of the room and sat down. Over the next hour, a steady stream of people stopped by to say hello to Claire. Some were sincere. Some were clearly fishing for gossip about Richard's trial. A few looked like they wanted to apologize for voting her out, but couldn't quite figure out how to do it without admitting they'd been wrong. Claire handled all of them with the same cool politeness, never giving them more than they deserved. Nathan watched her navigate the conversations and realized that she'd changed over the past 6 months. Not in any dramatic way, but in small, quiet shifts that added up to someone different. She smiled more. She didn't flinch when people got too close. She laughed at jokes that weren't particularly funny just because it felt good to laugh. She looked happy. The gala's program started with a speech from Margaret about Creston's commitment to community investment and education initiatives. Then there were awards, presentations, a live auction that raised an obscene amount of money for local schools. Nathan bid on a weekend getaway package to a cabin in Michigan and lost to someone who casually threw down $5,000, like it was pocket change. "We could have just rented a cabin," Claire whispered. "That's not the same as winning one." "You're competitive about the strangest things," says the woman who spent 3 hours teaching Emma chess openings last week. Claire smiled. "That's different. Emma needs to know how to defend against the Sicilian. She's 6. Exactly. Start them young." The dinner was served and Nathan picked at his food while Claire made polite conversation with the people at their table. Most of them were mid-level executives Nathan didn't recognize, but they all knew who Claire was. One of them, a man in his 50s with gray hair and an expensive watch, leaned across the table toward Claire. "I heard you sold your shares to Margaret," he said. "That must have been a difficult decision." "Not really," Claire said. "It was time to move on." "Still, walking away from a company you rebuilt, that takes courage. Or stupidity," Claire said lightly. "I haven't decided which yet, The man laughed like she'd made a joke, but Nathan could see the truth underneath. Claire still wasn't sure she'd made the right choice. She was still figuring out who she was without the company defining her. Nathan reached under the table and took her hand. She squeezed it without looking at him. After dinner, the lights dimmed and a string quartet started playing. People moved toward the dance floor in pairs, swaying to music that was probably classical, but all sounded the same to Nathan. "Do you want to dance?" Claire asked. Nathan stared at her. "I don't know how to dance." "Neither do I." "Then why are we doing this?" "Because everyone else is, and I don't want to sit here watching them anymore." Claire stood up and held out her hand. Nathan took it. They moved to the edge of the dance floor, and Claire put one hand on Nathan's shoulder while he tried to figure out where his other hand was supposed to go. "Waist, Claire said, "and try not to step on my feet." "Sa askoy, mamaas." No promises. They started moving, and it was awkward and clumsy, and Nathan absolutely stepped on her feet twice in the first 30 seconds. But Claire didn't care. She just laughed and kept dancing, and eventually Nathan stopped thinking about what he was supposed to be doing and just followed her lead. "This is weird," Nathan said. "What is?" "This. Us. Being at a corporate gala like we're normal people. We are normal people." "You know what I mean." Claire looked up at him. 6 months ago, I was sleeping 4 hours a night and running a company I hated. You were sleeping in your car and fighting for custody of your daughter. Now we're dancing at a charity gala and going home to a house that has a cat named Commander Whiskers. I'd say we're doing pretty well. You think so? I think we're alive. I think we're together. I think that's more than either of us expected. Nathan pulled her closer. I love you. The words came out before he could stop them. Claire went very still. Nathan's heart was pounding. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Say it again, Claire said quietly. What? Say it again. I need to make sure I heard you right. Nathan looked at her, at the woman who'd saved his life, who'd taken him in when he had nowhere to go, who'd built fairy forts with his daughter and taught her chess and slowly learned how to be part of something bigger than just herself. I love you, he said. Claire's eyes were bright. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Love. I don't know how to be the person someone loves. You're already doing it. I'm terrible at it. I work too much. I don't talk about my feelings. I get angry when things don't go the way I planned. I know. I love you anyway. Claire shook her head, but she was smiling. You're an idiot. Probably. I love you too. Oh. Nathan kissed her right there on the dance floor in front of 200 people who probably had opinions about it. He didn't care. When they pulled apart, Claire was laughing. What? Nathan asked. Nothing. I just never thought I'd be the kind of person who kisses someone at a charity gala. You're full of surprises. Apparently. They kept dancing, and Nathan realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not some grand, sweeping moment, just this, dancing badly with someone you loved while a string quartet played and the world kept spinning. Over Claire's shoulder, Nathan saw Greg Tomlinson standing near the bar. Nathan's entire body went tense. Claire felt it immediately. What's wrong? Greg's here. Claire turned to look. Greg was watching them, a glass of whiskey in his hand and an expression on his face that Nathan couldn't read. I thought he was in prison, Nathan said. He got out on bail last month. Trial's not until next year. Claire's voice had gone cold. I didn't know he'd be here. Do you want to leave? No, this is Margaret's event. I'm not letting him ruin it. But Nathan could feel her hands shaking. Greg started walking toward them. Nathan stepped in front of Claire without thinking. Stay behind me. Nathan, just stay behind me. Greg stopped a few feet away. Up close, he looked like hell. His face was thinner, his eyes were bloodshot, and his suit hung on him like he'd lost 20 pounds since the arrest. Claire, he said. His voice was rough. Can we talk? No, Claire said. Please, just 5 minutes. You don't get 5 minutes. You don't get anything. Get sit, papase image. Greg's jaw tightened. I know I screwed up. I know I betrayed you. But I need you to understand. Understand what? That you helped Richard steal from the company? That you covered up fraud and murder? That you threatened Nathan's daughter? I didn't know about the murder, Greg said quickly. I swear I didn't know Richard was going to kill Archer. I thought it was just financial fraud. You thought you'd get away with it, Claire interrupted. You thought you could help destroy the company, collect your payout from Langford, and walk away clean. The only thing you didn't plan for was getting caught. Greg flinched. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. That's not the same thing. Claire, please, get away from her, Nathan said. Greg looked at him like he'd forgotten Nathan was there. This doesn't concern you. Yeah, it does. You tried to destroy her company. You threatened my daughter. So, yeah, it concerns me. I never threatened. Someone sent me a text saying they'd hurt Emma if I didn't stop digging. That text came from a burner phone purchased 2 blocks from your apartment. The FBI has the receipt with your credit card on it. Greg went pale. Get away from her, Nathan said again, and don't come near us again. What? Greg looked at Claire one more time, like he was hoping she'd intervene, hoping she'd tell Nathan to back off and give Greg a chance to explain. Claire didn't say a word. Greg turned and walked away. Nathan watched him go, his heart still pounding. Claire put a hand on his arm. "You okay?" "No. Are you?" "No." Claire took a shaky breath. "But I will be." They left the dance floor and went back to their table. Nathan's hands were still trembling from the adrenaline. Margaret appeared a few minutes later, looking concerned. "I saw Greg talking to you. I'm sorry. I didn't think he'd actually show up." "It's fine," Claire said. "It's not fine. I'll have security remove him." "Don't. He's leaving anyway. And I don't want to make a scene at your event." Margaret hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Margaret nodded and squeezed Claire's shoulder before walking away. Nathan and Claire sat in silence for a while, watching people dance and laugh and pretend like the world wasn't complicated. "I thought seeing him would make me angry," Claire said quietly, "but I just feel sad." "Why sad?" "Because he was my father's friend. He was supposed to be someone I could trust. And he threw it all away for money." Nathan didn't have a good response to that. "Do you think people can change?" Claire asked. "I don't know. I think people can make different choices, but I don't know if that's the same thing as changing." Claire nodded slowly. "I want to believe that people are redeemable, that no matter how badly they screw up, they can still come back from it. Do you believe that about Greg?" "No, but I want to believe it about myself." Nathan turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "I spent 10 years being ruthless, firing people, cutting costs, destroying anyone who got in my way. I told myself it was necessary, that I was saving the company. But the truth is I was just scared of failing like my father did, scared of being vulnerable. So I built walls and convinced myself that being alone was the same as being strong." She looked at Nathan. "You tore down those walls, you and Emma, and now I'm terrified that I'm going to revert back to the person I was, that I'm going to push you away because that's what I know how to do." Nathan took her hand. "You're not going to do that." "How do you know?" "Because you're here. Because you chose to stay even when it was easier to leave. Because you're sitting at a charity gala trying to figure out how to be a better person instead of just pretending you already are one." Claire's eyes were wet. "I don't want to be alone anymore." "Then don't be. Stay with me. Stay with Emma. Stay with the cat who hates everyone except you. Build something real instead of something perfect." Claire laughed through the tears. "Commander Whiskers doesn't hate everyone. He's just particular. He's a judgmental orange nightmare and you love him." "I do," Claire admitted. "I love all of you, even the parts that are messy and complicated and don't make sense." "Good. Because that's all we've got." They sat there together while the gala continued around them, and Nathan realized that this was what healing looked like. Not some dramatic transformation, not a sudden revelation, just two broken people choosing to stay together even when it was hard. An hour later, they said goodbye to Margaret and left the gala early. On the drive home, Claire was quiet. "You okay?" Nathan asked. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About what we're building, about what comes next." "And?" Claire was quiet for a moment. "I want to start a foundation." Nathan glanced at her. "What kind of foundation?" "One that helps people who are trying to rebuild their lives. People who've lost everything and don't know where to start. People like you were 6 months ago." Nathan's chest tightened. "Claire, I have the money from selling my shares, I have the time, and I have first-hand experience watching someone claw their way back from nothing." She looked at him. "I want to use what I have to help people who don't have anything. People who just need someone to believe in them long enough for them to believe in themselves." Nathan had to pull the car over because his eyes were blurring with tears. "That's a good idea," he said. "You think so?" "I think it's the best idea you've ever had." Claire smiled. "Will you help me?" "With what?" "Running it. You know what it's like to be on the other side. You know what people actually need versus what people think they need." Nathan stared at her. "I'm an accountant at a nonprofit. I don't know how to run a foundation." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." Nathan laughed. "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true, Sid." They sat there on the side of the road while cars passed by and the city lights flickered in the distance. Okay, Nathan said finally. Let's do it. They spent the next month putting together a business plan for the foundation. Claire handled the legal paperwork and the financial structure. Nathan handled the outreach, connecting with local organizations that worked with homeless families, single parents, people rebuilding after addiction or incarceration. They called it the Second Chance Foundation, which Emma said was boring but also nice. The foundation officially launched 3 months later with a small ceremony at a community center on the south side of Chicago. No crystal chandeliers, no expensive flower arrangements, just folding chairs, homemade cookies, and 50 people who'd been helped by the program's pilot run. Nathan stood at the front of the room and talked about what it felt like to lose everything. About sleeping in his car, about missing his daughter's school events because he couldn't afford to take time off work, about the shame that came from failing when everyone expected you to succeed. This foundation exists because someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one, Nathan said, looking at Claire. And now we want to give that same chance to as many people as we can. Claire talked about her father, about watching him lose everything and not knowing how to save him, about spending 10 years trying to fix companies because she didn't know how to fix herself. We can't save everyone, she said, but we can show up. We can listen. We can provide resources and support and a reminder that failure isn't permanent, that you can lose everything and still rebuild. Emma sat in the front row with Commander Whiskers and a cat carrier beside her, drawing pictures of the people in the room. After the ceremony, people came up to thank them. A single mother who'd gotten help with childcare so she could finish her nursing degree. A man who'd been homeless for 3 years and now had an apartment and a job at a warehouse. A teenager who'd aged out of foster care and didn't know how to navigate the world alone until the foundation connected her with a mentor. Nathan listened to their stories and realized that this was what mattered. Not corner offices or executive titles or proving that he was worth something. Just showing up for people who needed someone to show up. That night, back at the house, Nathan found Claire in the library staring at a picture on her phone. "What's that?" he asked. "A photo my father sent me the day before he died. I found it in his email backups." She showed Nathan the screen. It was a picture of a younger Claire, maybe 16 or 17, standing in front of Creston's original office building with a huge smile on her face. "He wrote, 'This is what I'm fighting for,' in the email," Claire said. "I never understood what he meant until now." "What did he mean?" "He wasn't fighting for the company. He was fighting for me, for the future he wanted me to have." Claire set the phone down. "I spent 10 years trying to save his company because I thought that's what he would have wanted. But what he actually wanted was for me to be happy." "Are you happy?" Nathan asked. Claire thought about it. "I'm getting there." Nathan sat down beside her. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to Emma play with the cat upstairs. "I got a call from my ex-wife today," Nathan said. Claire looked at him. "What did she say?" "She said Emma's been different lately, happier, more confident. She wanted to know what we were doing differently." "What did you tell her?" "I told her we were just showing up, being present, not trying to be perfect." "And what did she say?" "She said, whatever we're doing, keep doing it." Nathan smiled. "She also said Emma won't stop talking about you. Apparently you're the coolest person Emma knows." Claire laughed. "Emma has low standards. Emma has excellent taste. She named our cat Commander Whiskers." "Like I said, excellent taste." Claire leaned her head against Nathan's shoulder. "I never thought I'd have this." "Have what?" "A family, a home, someone who loves me even when I'm difficult." "You're always difficult." "I know, but you're still here." "Yeah," Nathan said, "I am." 1 year after Richard Dawson's arrest, the trial finally began. Nathan and Claire both testified, walking the jury through the evidence, the emails, the transactions that had nearly destroyed Creston Technologies. Richard sat at the defense table looking smaller than Nathan remembered, like the year in jail had hollowed him out from the inside. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Richard was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Greg got 12 years for his role in the conspiracy. Two other executives who'd helped cover up the fraud got lighter sentences in exchange for their cooperation. When the verdict was read, Claire didn't react. She just sat in the courtroom gallery with Nathan's hand in hers and let out a long, slow breath. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them asking for comments. Claire gave them one sentence. Justice was served. Then she and Nathan got in the car and drove home. Emma was waiting for them on the front steps with Commander Whiskers in her lap. "Did the bad man go to jail?" she asked. "Yeah, sweetheart," Nathan said. "He did." "Good. Now can we get pizza?" Nathan looked at Claire. Claire shrugged. "Sure, Nathan said. We can get pizza." They ordered too much food and ate it in the living room while watching a movie Emma picked. Commander Whiskers stole pepperoni off Nathan's plate. Claire fell asleep on the couch halfway through. Nathan covered her with a blanket and sat there watching his daughter and the woman he loved and the cat who barely tolerated him, and thought about how a year ago he'd been sleeping in his car with no idea if he'd ever see Emma again. Life was strange like that. One moment you were at the bottom, convinced you'd never climb out. The next moment you were sitting in a house that felt like home, surrounded by people who chose to love you even when it was hard. Emma finished her pizza and curled up next to Claire on the couch, her small hand resting on Claire's arm. "Dad?" Emma said quietly. "Yeah? Are we going to stay here forever?" "I don't know, Em. Do you want to?" Emma thought about it. "Yeah, I like it here. It feels safe." Nathan's throat was tight. "Yeah, me too. And I think Claire likes having us here." "What makes you say that?" "Because she smiles more now. And she doesn't work all the time. And she lets Commander Whiskers sleep on her bed even though she says she doesn't." Nathan laughed quietly. "You're pretty observant, kid." "I know." Emma yawned. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad we didn't give up." Nathan looked at his daughter, at the life they'd built from the wreckage of everything they'd lost. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." 2 years after the foundation launched, Nathan stood in front of a room full of donors and community partners and talked about the 300 families they'd helped rebuild their lives. Claire stood beside him, no longer the ruthless CEO who'd fired 60 people in her first week. Just a woman who'd learned that power wasn't about control. It was about choosing to use what you had to lift other people up. Emma, now 8 years old, sat in the front row doing homework. She'd gotten taller, louder, more confident. She still drew pictures of castles, but now they had gardens and families and cats wearing crowns. After the presentation, a young woman approached Nathan. She was maybe 23, 24, with nervous eyes and a baby on her hip. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I just wanted to say thank you. Your foundation helped me get into a nursing program. I start next month." Nathan shook her hand. "That's great. Congratulations. I was living in my car with my son for 6 months before I found you. I didn't think anyone would help me, but you did." Nathan's chest hurt. "I know what that's like. I'm glad we could help." The woman's eyes were wet. "My son's going to grow up knowing his mom didn't give up, because you didn't give up on me." After she left, Claire put her hand on Nathan's back. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking about how different things could have been." "But they're not. You're here. She's here. 300 families are here because you chose to keep going even when it was hard." Nathan turned to look at her. "We chose to keep going." "Okay, They walked out of the event together, Emma between them holding both their hands. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat and Nathan carried her upstairs to her room. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stood there for a moment just watching her breathe. When he came back downstairs, Claire was in the kitchen making tea. "She's getting so big," Nathan said. "I know. It's terrifying." "You're good with her." Claire smiled. "She makes it easy." Nathan walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Thank you." "For what?" "Well, for saving my life. For giving me a second chance. For teaching me that falling apart doesn't mean you're broken forever." Claire turned around to face him. "You saved my life too, you know." "How?" "You reminded me that there's more to living than just surviving, that it's okay to be vulnerable, that letting people in doesn't make you weak." She kissed him softly. "I love you," she said. I love you too.
You chân.
They stood there in the quiet kitchen, holding each other while Commander Whiskers meowed from his perch on top of the refrigerator. And Nathan realized that this was what redemption looked like. Not some grand gesture, not a moment of revelation. Just two broken people who'd chosen to heal together, building something real from the wreckage of everything they'd lost. The past would always be there. The mistakes, the failures, the nights sleeping in cars, and the years spent hiding behind walls of their own making. But the future was theirs to create. And for the first time in his life, Nathan wasn't afraid of it anymore. Because he wasn't facing it alone. He had Claire. He had Emma. He had a cat who judged him constantly, and a foundation that helped people who needed someone to believe in them. He had a home that felt like home. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.